It's been a bit of a whirlwind for Ange in the last month and a half or so, 39 days in the Nottingham Forest job. How do you even begin to kind of surmise what's been a pretty hectic period recently?
Yeah, crazy to think of in the space of 4 or 5 months, he's won a Europa League and got sacked twice. Um, Pretty brutal. But the Nottingham Forest stuff, look, I just think it was a mistake to go there to begin with. Not that it couldn't have worked out. In fact, I think the football they were playing, they would have gotten there eventually, but he just entered a scenario at a club where there is so little margin for error. Um, that's why I think he shouldn't have gone there. Like the risks were too great because you basically needed a whole bunch of things to go right for it to be feasible, and a whole bunch of things went wrong. Part of the whole thing of getting Ange in as your manager is you should know that if that's what you're going to do, then there's actually no point in doing it unless you see through the difficult period. And it just got too difficult for a whole bunch of reasons, and yeah, now Ange's reputation is copped a little bit of a bruising as a result, but I'm pretty sure he'll be back.
So it does feel like there's kind of two sides to all the attention. There is Ange, should he have gone to Nottingham in the first place? And then Marinakis, if you weren't willing to suffer through it, why did you offer him the job in the first place? And on the Ange side, you say potentially it was a mistake to go to that club. But, you talk in Angeball about the kind of club that attracts Ange in terms of a project. It is something like, all the history and the European triumphs of the past and fallen on bad times and the opportunity to turn a situation like that around. It almost feels like as soon as that's presented on a plate for him personally, it'd be pretty hard for him to have said no to that opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing about him is that most people would run a million miles from something that is so fraught with risk. But that's to pinch one of his lines. That's who he is, mate. Like that's in his nature to have a crack. All those things you mentioned as well. Like it looked on face value a perfect opportunity for him. But and I thought that as well when he took the job. But that was on the basis that Marinakis would stick it out, at least certainly longer than 39 days. So that, I guess, was part of the calculation that Ange had to make, and that's why it was a mistake, I think. Well, easy to say, of course, in hindsight.
Do you think that Marinakis thought he was willing to go through that period? The first rule of Angeball is that first you have to suffer, and pretty much at every club except for Tottenham has always been a pretty tough couple of months. And I just wonder if Marinakis in his own mind thought he was willing to do that, and then all of a sudden you get 8 games in and you still haven't got even one win, and then the voice kind of just gets louder and louder because he's not an idiot, right? He has to have known what was coming in some respect.
You'd like to think so, but you'd also like to think he would have taken some of the football on board as well. And I know that Forest's defensive numbers were pretty bad, but some of the other numbers in reflecting in terms of the way that the style had changed so quickly. Okay, the end result wasn't there, and there were things to tighten. But if you actually looked at the way they were playing, detach that from results, there was evidence there that things were coming, and I just couldn't believe some of the games that Forest played in terms of the chances not converted, and also the lack of decisiveness in defence. Like, it's very easy to say that's Ange's fault. That's Ange's fault. Oh, they've conceded a goal from a set piece. That's Ange's fault. But I don't know. You'd like to think Marinakis might have read Angeball, to be honest, because if he had, he might have learned that it's worth the wait. But that's the thing. Like, and I just said before about detaching the performances from the results. In football, you just can't, especially in today's Premier League when there's not really any bad teams anymore. It's really becoming like a Super League kind of thing. It's crazy, and so the margins are so fine, and especially when you lose the fans in the way that Ange did as well. Like, it turned real toxic real quick. And I guess Marinakis just panicked, and understandably so. A little bit like Tottenham season 3, though. He won't know sort of what's behind that door. Like, how long would it have taken for Forest to sort of click, and what would it have looked like?
You brought up the season 3 call. And I remember thinking at the time when, they're doing the parade for Tottenham for winning the Europa League, and thinking, I wonder how certain he thinks his job is at that point in time. Because there was plenty of conversation, of course. If he wins the Europa, if he loses, how does that affect if he'll keep on at Tottenham next year? I remember him talking, being announced at Forest, about him knowing that it was coming, that regardless of winning or losing the Europa League, he was going to be moved on from Tottenham. I'm not sure if that was he'd been told or he just had the sense of something was building. But with that knowledge and then still going out to the parade and saying season 3 is going to be better than season 2 is a little, it feels like a little bit of an FU in retrospect to Daniel Levy in Tottenham.
Yeah, it probably was. Maybe it was a bit of that combined with a last roll of the dice to see if getting the reaction from the crowd that he did would sway Daniel Levy. I think there was another FU in retrospect, which was when Levy had said, which was that they brought in Mourinho and Conte, win now types, and that didn't work, so they brought in Ange. And it really wasn't until Ange said it that I thought about it this way, but it was more like, but Ange is a winner. Like, that's all he ever does. It just takes a little bit longer, but it's always worth the wait. And so I think Ange was a little bit miffed that even the guy who hired him didn't think he was a winner in the same way as Mourinho and Conte. So I can completely understand why Ange would be, if he thought his card was marked at that point, to come out and start talking like that is a bit like, well, I've just shown you, mate. Like, who's the winner now? Yeah, I think for all the detail in between there, though, we're probably going to have to wait for Ange's next book one day, and that'll be his, by the way.
Okay, no follow up.
Oh, I have a silly idea for another book on Ange, but it might be one that would have to wait some years before I get into it. The idea is bouncing around in my mind, and I think there's something in it, but I'm not going to write another Ange book straight away. Hopefully, one day I can update Angeball. It's not immediately on the cards. He might need to win another massive thing for that to become relevant to the publishers. But I think the next book you read about Ange will probably come from him, not me.
What are the options for him going forward? Obviously, Snoop Dogg wants him back at Celtic. His name's been linked there plenty of times. Is he ready to go to Greece yet?
I can definitely see him being Greek national team manager at some point. Definitely. Maybe in the lead up to the next Euros or World Cup, potentially. If I was him, I'd probably see out this season in terms of having a break and re-energising and probably just, I think he had to get over Spurs a little bit. I can imagine how heartbroken he would have been after winning that trophy. And, you look at their squad now and the additions they've made, and he would have been sitting there thinking, well, we've got over this hump of needing to win something. So what can we do from here? Especially once they got all those players back. I don't think Celtic is going to happen, unfortunately, for Snoop Dogg. I think that's probably the right call for all parties. And so who knows what the next opportunity will be. I think he'd be well served to go outside of England for a little bit, more for external factors than internal. Then again, this bloke loves walking into fires, so maybe he'll want to go back to England just to shove it up everyone who doubted him, or at least to try and sort of, show that he's not yielding to anyone. I'd love to see him. I think he was reported as being on the shortlist for Juventus, which obviously went for Spalletti. I think that would be a perfect job for him, because Juventus is the sort of club, and in Serie A, where they're not going to get relegated. So no matter how badly an initial Ange season would be at Juventus, there's no dangers there. And that's a club that's fallen away from the pack in Italy and has an identity and an idea about it and a status that has been lost a little bit. And he would look at a club like that and think, I often think he looks at real football jobs the way that I look at sort of Football Manager saves a little bit. He always goes for those sort of ones.
Storyline.
Which I love about him. But who knows, mate? Like, I could see him at an Ajax, the idea of winning something at Cruyff's club. Even though his reputation is a little bit damaged from what's happened recently, he's still a guy who's won trophies everywhere, including the Europa League trophy, which is worth a lot. Like, people downplay it because the Champions League teams didn't drop down from last season and won't anymore. It's still a massive effort, and there's a lot of coaches who people rate higher than Ange that haven't won a Europa League or anything close to it. So he'll be back, man. Don't know when, don't know where, but I'm sure there's a pretty special remontada on the way.